and no one controls Bitcoin. There's no company or government agency behind it. It's just a decentralized peer-to-peer network that allows anyone in any country equal access.
We will come back to that conversation in just a moment. This is Asia Now, the podcast featuring stories and interviews from the Asia Pacific region. If you take a look at just about any science fiction film, you see that they don't use dollars. They use some sort of universal currency that can be transferred at the click of a button. Today we're seeing the emergence of digital currency. And what exactly are Bitcoins? That's today's conversation taking place in Asia Now. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Asia Now. I of course am your host, Steve Miller, and it is my pleasure to spend just a little bit of time with you here this week. Now, if you know me, if you know my story, you know that I love to travel. I've been all around the world, and every year, around January, my wife and I escape the cold, frigid, horribly cold winters here in Seoul and travel throughout Southeast Asia. It is absolutely my favorite time of year because I hate the frigid temperatures. I really do. I live for days when I can walk in flip-flops along the beach. But there's one thing I do hate about traveling, and it's not the associated expense. It's the hassle of having to exchange currencies. And I'm not talking about just simple transactions. I'm talking about when you travel from country to country to country, going from dollars to pesos to yen to won. Well, you get the idea. When you're traveling extensively throughout a region, you're always having to deal with that dreaded exchange rate, trying to find the best deal. And I absolutely abhor it. But if we take a look back at some classic science fiction movies, some classic science fiction novels, there's this notion of a universal currency. You call it a credit, let's say. And while we are a long ways off from having a global currency that everyone uses, that everyone accepts, we are seeing the emergence of digital currencies. And of course, Bitcoins are the most famous. But exactly what are Bitcoins? Where do they come from? How do you get them? And more importantly, how do you use them? And are they the future of currency here on the planet Earth? Well, joining me via Skype on this week's podcast is Chris Williams, Meetup organizer of the Seoul Bitcoin Center. Chris, welcome to Asia Now.
Thanks a lot for having me today.
So I got to ask you, for those that don't know, really, what the heck is a Bitcoin?
I think that one of the easiest ways to describe Bitcoin is digital gold. You can think of it as digital gold. It's data that you can send to anyone, anywhere in the world instantly and basically for free. It's like sending money just like you send an email. And no one controls Bitcoin. There's no company or government agency behind it. It's just a decentralized peer-to-peer network that allows anyone in any country equal access.
But if no one controls it and it can be sent anywhere, where did it come from? Everything has to come from somewhere. Where did these Bitcoins come from? And more importantly, how do you get them and keep them?
Well, at its core, Bitcoin is just a computer program. It's a protocol that describes a network, and this network has rules. So in the beginning, for example, one rule of the network is every 10 minutes, new coins are issued. And they're issued in a predictable manner, so we always know how many coins there are, and in the future we can predict how many there will be at a certain time. Right now, there's around 13.9 million coins in existence that people own in their addresses, just like an email address. And
so before you can do it, let me get this straight. So from nothing, 13.9 million coins came into existence, and then every 10 minutes, more coins come into existence. Is that going to happen forever?
No. So again, based on the rules of the system, which were implemented when the system initiated back at the end of 2009, there's a predictable supply of Bitcoins, and the supply will cease to increase in the year 2140. So we're talking another in 100 years and 120 years from now, the cap of 21 million coins will have been reached, and after that date, no more coins will ever be released. It's a hard cap.
So it's a really closed system. There's a finite number of Bitcoins that will ever be created.
Right, and that was an intentional design feature of the system, that the creator Satoshi Nakamoto implemented from the beginning. He wanted Bitcoin to be deflationary, so that the additional users that come onto the network and get their share of Bitcoin, all these additional users going after the same fixed number of Bitcoin should increase the value over time, rather than what we have today in the fiat currency, where governments can control the monetary policy and issue additional currency and create inflation that we see now.
Okay, so we know that there's going to be a finite number of them. They're out there in the ether, in the digital wonderland that is the internet. How does one get them to where you actually own Bitcoins?
Right, so just like you have cash in your wallet, you can hold Bitcoin, which is just data, in a digital wallet. So I can have a digital wallet on my hand phone, on my cell phone. I can have a digital wallet on my computer. I can even store Bitcoins on a USB stick or even on a piece of paper. So there's basically 3 ways to get them. I can buy Bitcoins from someone who already owns Bitcoins. I can go up to them with dollars or Korean won and say, here's 10,000 won, please give me 10,000 won worth of Bitcoins. And they say, okay, and they scan my address and I get 10,000 Bitcoins. I can buy Bitcoins from an ATM, which now there's over 7,000 ATMs in Korea where people can stop by and purchase Bitcoin with their credit cards. Or the third way, which is not really for the average person like you or I, is mining Bitcoins. And this is how the new Bitcoins are actually distributed to users, is through this process of mining.
So it really is like looking for gold.
Yeah, and you can think, how hard would it be for you and I to go out ourselves right now, dig up the earth and find a reasonable amount of gold ourselves? This is impossible. And mining Bitcoin is reaching that same level of difficulty for an individual. It's not the amount of money you need to spend on specialized computer equipment to actually be a competitive miner and earn these new issued Bitcoins it's not doable for the average person.
Okay, so if you are able to get Bitcoins, whether from buying from somebody else or going to one of these ATMs, after you have the Bitcoins, what can you do with them? I mean, what can you buy, or how would you make use of it?
Well, there's many uses. Whatever you can do with money, you can basically do with Bitcoin and more. So for myself, I got involved in Bitcoin because I'm living in Korea and I'm originally from Canada. And I'm always looking for cheaper ways to send money home. So I can, originally I was using a standard money transfer with a bank. But it costs money. I have to pay an exchange rate, and I have to pay the fees to the banks in Korea, and I even pay a fee to my bank in Canada just for receiving that money. But with Bitcoin, I can do this same process much more securely, without the oversight of any institution like a bank or the government, and much more cheaply as well. So.
Okay, but yes, you can do it more cheaply, but with the oversight, there's some guarantees that the money is actually going to be there. I mean, who guarantees Bitcoin?
Well, the network is secured by this mining process. And because the network has been running for almost 6 years now, it's proven itself to be secure. In the beginning, the earliest of adopters and the earliest skeptics, many people who are programmers or who know computer code, they were one of the first groups that were interested in this new technology. And many of them who were deemed themselves hackers went after the core code, and they tried to hack it and maybe create Bitcoin for themselves or just disrupt the entire system. And some of the best hackers in the world did go after the code, and no one to this day has ever been able to hack it. And hacking Bitcoin could be quite rewarding. You'd be quite famous if you stopped this $4 billion experiment now. So every day that Bitcoin runs, it's proving itself again and again and getting stronger and stronger. And on an individual level, like mobile wallets and wallets on your computer, they have all kinds of like fail safes built in. Like if I mistype an address, if the formatting of the address is incorrect, like the wallet will warn me and say, oh, like your address like is not correct. Like please check it again. So in terms of security of the system, it's the most secure like value transmission system like the world has ever seen. At the very ends, the fringes of this network, we do need to intersect with the traditional banking system as well. So generally people trust their banks, like people working in other countries trust their banks enough to send thousands of dollars between countries. So if we trust our banks already, and the Bitcoin system has proven itself for the last 6 years to be unhackable and, like I said, the most secure value transfer network the world has ever seen, I think 2 and 2, we can trust this system. And people are sending millions of dollars in Bitcoin back and forth all around the world every second of every day.
Okay, so you bring up a really good point, the ability to transfer money, which as someone who lives in South Korea and I have credit cards from the United States, I do that on a routine basis. And you said that you got into this because you wanted to send money back home and you were getting dinged by both the banks here and back in Canada.
That's true.
So how do you assign a monetary value to a Bitcoin that is recognizable in, I would say, the real world versus the digital world, whether it be dollars, Canadian dollars, pounds? How is that achieved?
It works very similar to how FX rates are achieved. If I have US dollars, there's an exchange rate between US dollars and Canadian dollars and Korean won and all
But those are all backed up by governments. What is the backing? What determines the value of a Bitcoin? Is it just hype, or is there something that really says, okay, I have this digital Bitcoin, right now it's worth about $250. What makes it $250?
Well, this is just traditional price discovery based on supply and demand in a free market. So yes, of course, in the past there has been market manipulation, and hype definitely like influences the price as well. So there are smart ways, like if you're only thinking about transmitting using Bitcoin for remittance, for example, there are smart ways to do this. So if you're worried about price volatility in the short term, then get in and get out quickly. You don't have to hold, like sending a wire transfer takes 2 days or 4 business days or 5 business days. So I guess you're guaranteed you already know the number of currency units you're going to receive on the other end. But with Bitcoin, it doesn't take 2 or 3 days to send a transaction. Like you can send a transaction, be in and out of Bitcoin in less than an hour. So these days, the price is fairly stable, that you're not going to see any large swing in volume or large swing in price in that short of a time. But overall, in the last few months, the Bitcoin price has been relatively stable, I would say.
Well, let's talk about that, and let's talk about security as well. Now, last year, there was a lot of buzz about Bitcoin, and specifically about Mt. Gox, which really spiked up the price significantly, and then all their Bitcoins disappeared. Right. So that is very alarming, because if you're in a traditional bank, you have, in the United States, the FDIC, you have some kind of insurance. With Bitcoin, once the Bitcoins are gone, they're gone, right?
Right. Well, no one has really been suggesting that Bitcoin can replace savings accounts. There are like specific benefits to using Bitcoin certain ways, but as of right now, savings, like as a savings account, putting a large sum of your like personal wealth into Bitcoin is not something what Bitcoiners are recommending.
Well, wouldn't it be analogous to just playing the market, being speculative on the stock market?
Of course,
or buying other kind of commodities?
Of course, speculation is a huge part of the Bitcoin market right now. There's Bitcoin online exchanges in every country in the world, and there's traders on there every day buying and selling and playing the prices every single day, of course.
But going back to Mt. Gox, didn't that prove that essentially that if you put your Bitcoins with an exchange type server, you're taking a huge risk?
That's true, for sure, and that's where regulation comes in. So the speed of innovation, like in any industry, outpaces the regulation. The regulation is much slower. So, of course, the Bitcoin space and particularly exchanges that are offering like third-party services to the public, it's just like you said, storing your Bitcoin on an exchange is just like putting your money in the bank. So we do need regulation to oversee the behavior of the exchanges. There needs to be some customer protection there, and that is starting now in the United States. So some of the larger payment processors and exchanges, they're falling under official U.S. government regulation, and they're gaining things like insurance. So some customer deposits on websites like Coinbase in the United States are being guaranteed now. So this isn't happening in every country, but it's on the way for sure. And regulation will make those exchanges more safe for general public.
Now, if you do run into some problems, as you mentioned, in the United States, there's some people looking out for those who have Bitcoins. Is it just limited to those transactions taking place with those entities within the borders, or citizens within those countries?
In the case of the United States, it's fortunate. It depends on how you look at it, but the United States regulation is very far-reaching. So if I'm a company in the United States and I'm running a Bitcoin exchange, I need to identify all of my customers, no matter which country they're from. So I need to obey what they're called KYC, Know Your Customer laws. And not only do they need to identify the customers that are using their service directly, they often are also identifying the incoming, or if I'm a customer of Coinbase, they want me to let them know where I'm sending my Bitcoins. So I can't sign up to Coinbase and then start purchasing illegal substances on the dark market. So with the regulation comes more governments and restrictions over what people can do with Bitcoin. So, but the nice thing is you can choose. You can go the safe routes and store your Bitcoins on a site like Coinbase and be protected by insurance, but you also have to give up a lot of privacy. You have to follow their rules, or you can go it alone and you can store Bitcoins on your own wallet and you have no oversight. This is what a lot of libertarian types like taking back control of money from banks and from governments and basically becoming their own bank.
Right, and that brings up another question too, because if you're storing your own Bitcoin on your own wallet or anonymously on an exchange, it also makes it questionable as who actually has the money and who's actually transferring it, and for really what purpose, because we're talking digital transfers between two essential internet addresses with no one behind it.
That's true. That's exactly what's going on, and a lot of people like those anonymity features that Bitcoin provides.
But some say it's also a way for criminals to launder money.
That's true. It is, and just like innovation outpaces the regulation, any new technology that pops up and offers something attractive to a specific group is going to attract that group quickly. So it's the same with how the internet works. In the beginning, maybe the internet could have been fueled by people transferring information, I don't know what I can say on your show, but the internet in the beginning could have been fueled by pornography sites or gambling websites like that. Things that were illegal.
In the beginning, those were the big sites.
Exactly,
you look at the server farms around the country in the United States, that the top bandwidth eaters were porn sites and gambling sites.
And I think BitTorrent, also the file sharing sites, they account for a huge percentage of total internet bandwidth. But over time, as more users started using the internet, the values of the general public started to reflect in the internet. So now when we go on the internet, most people are sharing pictures and posting messages on social media. So the same, the users' the morality of the general public, once more people start using Bitcoin, and we're already seeing that now. In the beginning, definitely dark markets and money laundering stories kind of were more popular back in 2011, 2010 in the media. But these days, because there's so many more users, it's just the percentage of people who are using it for good, so far outweigh the percentage of people who are using it for like illegitimate purposes.
Well, let's talk about that. You mentioned money transfers, some other kinds of purchases, online, person-to-person payments. Why would someone want to get into this space? Why would someone want to start using Bitcoin? Is it for everyone or just for those that are on the bleeding edge of technology?
Well, right now, because of the level of UI, like the user interface right now is not quite at the level where, say, my grandparents could pick up the phone and start using Bitcoin today. But there's so many companies in every country around the world developing new user interfaces, wallets, and third-party services that very soon anyone will be able to pick up a device and use Bitcoin just by like a swipe of the finger or just even a motion with their arm. Over time, just sending email has also become easier, and more people have adopted email. In the beginning, email was also adopted by like technologists, people, and people who were familiar with like programming, things like that. But over time, like third parties like Gmail made this so much easier for us. Same thing is going to happen with Bitcoin.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. What is the goal of Bitcoin? Is it to drive a new kind of world currency, or is it to drive a new kind of, I guess, technology-based currency management?
Well, the thing that I mentioned before, Bitcoin has no one ownership group. There's no corporation. There's no president. So there's not only one goal. It's an open system, and people can use it any way they like. So there's a group of people who think we're going to fight the banks and we're going to take over control of the money and we're going to eliminate all world fiat currencies. But there's another group that says, wait a minute, like the technology behind Bitcoin, this public ledger called the blockchain, this can be useful for banks to adopt themselves as a new form of accounting. It's much more efficient. It's a lot less expensive for them to use. So like the integration ideology, I think, is starting to take over like this fight the power ideology.
So what are the next type of steps that need to be taken to make either Bitcoin more popular or more widely implemented?
There are companies in every country that are taking steps to improve like different services, like such as remittance. So there's companies popping up in the Philippines, Indonesia, and Africa, where you say, hey, I want to send like 1,000 Philippine pesos to my friend. This is his bank account number. They give you a Bitcoin address. You send them 1,000 pesos worth of Bitcoin, and they take care of the rest for you. That's on the remittance side. On the wallet side, like the NFC-enabled payments are popular. So like I said, you can store Bitcoin anywhere. I could store Bitcoin on a pair of sunglasses. So maybe I'm carrying around $20 of Bitcoin on my sunglasses, and I walk into a store and I buy a pack of gum. I take my sunglasses off and I just swipe them across the NFC receiver in the store, and I've just bought a pack of gum. So it's those unique ideas that we can't do with cash or with like carrying around my wallet. Maybe I'm on vacation, I'm at the beach. I can store Bitcoins on a small little plastic NFC chip. I can store Bitcoins on a sticker. I can stick a sticker on a business card and pass it to someone, and then now they have $1 in Bitcoins. It's these unique ideas that catch the public's attention. I think that it's going to increase the popularity.
Outstanding. And one last question. Do you think this is the currency of the future or simply just a fad?
The technology is definitely not going away. Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency, and it has such a massive head start in terms of investment and overall like network computing power. It's the strongest network compared to any other cryptocurrency out there by many, many, many times. So for the foreseeable future, I can't see another, we call them alternative cryptocurrency, like replacing Bitcoin at this time. Another interesting sort of competitor to Bitcoin is all these new payment programs coming out from like Apple Pay, Kakao Pay. Like a lot of the major technology corporations are coming out with their own sort of digital wallets and even their own tokens. So this is also very interesting because like Apple Pay, Apple company is known all over the world. Like millions of people have an iPhone. So they're going to jump all over this. They're going to learn what it is to have a digital wallet on their phone. For Bitcoin, this is great. And in my opinion, aside from the fees that it's going to cost the merchants to accept payments through Kakao Pay, through Apple Pay, Apple and Kakao, they have central servers located somewhere storing all their users' data. And it's not a matter of if these servers get hacked by hackers, it's when. These are massive targets, and hackers are going to go after them and steal people's private information and their financial information. With Bitcoin, you're not giving even your name away. You're just opening a wallet, up pops your QR code, which is your Bitcoin address, and off you go. If Bitcoin, a hacker can't, there's no central pool of users' data. A hacker has to hack one user, one address at a time. So if Apple Pay one day gets hacked, there goes 10 million users' private data. But if a Bitcoin address gets hacked, well, the Bitcoins in that address are lost, and hopefully there wasn't a lot in there. And if a hacker does get a hold of your Bitcoin address, your Bitcoins, probably it was your fault anyway because you weren't being secure with them.
All right. Well, Chris Williams with the Seoul Bitcoin Center, thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. It was my pleasure.
I hope you found that informative, but I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of Bitcoins? Are they the future or are they just a fad? Please leave your thoughts in the comments on Facebook or Twitter. To keep up with more news from the region, don't forget to follow Asian News Weekly on Facebook or Twitter. You can also send an email to the show with your questions, your comments, and your feedback. That email address is podcast@asiannewsweekly.net. If you enjoyed today's program, please share it with your friends, and if you haven't yet, subscribe. It's absolutely free and easy to do. You can do that on our website, asiannewsweekly.net, or in your favorite podcast application, like iTunes or Stitcher. Well, my friends, that is all the time for me this week. Until next time, my name is Steve Miller, reminding you to be true to yourself and to always be awesome.